Welcome to A Fine Time, The Nanny Revisited. This is a podcast about The Nanny, where we recap each episode and then discuss, sharing our own unique take on each episode. I'm Bernadette.
And I'm Debbie. Today we're talking about episode 33, When You Pish Upon a Star. As usual, we'll start with a brief summary of the episode. Maxwell and Cece are preparing to produce Oliver, and Cece suggests that they hire Jack Walker, the child actor star of Royal Flush, who has walked off the television set wanting to do quality. Cece contends he would appeal to everyone, even the lowest common denominator. Cece's opinion is quickly confirmed by Fran's adoration of Jack and her chiding Maxwell for previously passing on cats. Maxwell agrees to hire Jack and invites him to stay at the house until his parents can arrive. While endearing on Royal Flush, Jack rubs everyone the wrong way. Everyone, that is, except for Brighton, who has found his calling in life, sucking up to a famous guy, and Niles, who enjoys the cash Jack freely hands out. Right after Maxwell thanks Fran for convincing him to hire Jack, Jack announces that he's quitting show business to have a normal childhood. He thanks Fran for her advice, and Maxwell and Cece are, to put it nicely, livid. Maxwell directs Fran to take Jack out and to put on something smashing, take him out to the best restaurant in town, and order the most expensive thing on the menu in order to convince him to change his mind. At that dinner, Jack seems genuinely upset about the prospect of not getting out of his contract, and Fran agrees to talk to Mr. Sheffield on his behalf. Maxwell, being a kind, good-hearted guy, lets Jack out of his contract, and as soon as Jack left the Sheffield home, Good Day New York announces that Jack has arranged for a significant pay increase with the producers of Royal Flush, provided he can get out of the contract that Maxwell just tore up. Bernadette, did I miss anything?
No, you did a good job.
Awesome, thank you. Would you like to take us to scene one?
Yes. So we start the show in the office, and we have Maxwell, Cece, and Niles. And Cece's trying to, again, convince Maxwell that they should hire this child star. He's a sitcom star. And Maxwell, of course, is unsure about this. But Cece pushes its little Kippy from Royal Flush. And Royal Flush apparently is a sitcom that where I believe Niall says the butler is the smartest. Is that? But we'll get into the description a little bit further on in the scene. Um, but again, Cece's trying to appeal to Maxwell, saying that everybody knows Jack Walker, aside from Maxwell,
Right.
and reaches even the most common denominator. And of course, this is when Fran walks in. And she's talking about, she's never going to order from Pizza Hut again and, just random stuff. And then, of course, they mention Jack Walker. And immediately we learn that the catchphrase of his character on the sitcom is, "Hey, yo, whoa."
Correct.
And again, we have Cece's like really pushing for this. She'll bet her reputation, to which Niall says, "What there needs to be a $5 minimum
Mm-hmm.
for a bet." But again, we learn that Jack Walker walked off the sitcom to do the wanting more quality work, and Cece kind of, I believe it's Cece's like, he thinks what we do is quality.
Yeah. Yeah, which is sort of funny because,
Yeah,
she's also the one who explains that he walked off the show and wants to do quality, and he thinks that's what we do. Is the way
yes,
she does it, and it's
exactly.
just like, okay, you should maybe believe in your work a little more.
Yeah, one would hope.
Right.
but but anyway, again, Maxwell's not convinced, and so Fran brings up cats again.
Of course she does.
And he goes, "Is there a bloody statute of limitations on that?" And Fran's like, I'd say now and forever.
Correct, which is also a reference back to cats.
Yes. So then Fran sits on the edge of Maxwell's desk, the edge that's like the corner that's closest to him because he's sitting down. And he kind of makes a comment of, Oh, she's on the desk. She's sitting on the desk. This will take at least an hour.
Yep.
And Fran begins to describe the show Royal Flush. And essentially, it is the nanny.
Yes.
You have it where it's a rich widower, and then he gets this nanny to come in, but she's gorgeous, and there's actual some sexual chemistry. And of course, Cece butts in that no, he's actually in love with his business partner. And Fran's like, "What show are you watching?" And of course, the butler always shuts her up. And Niles kind of interjects at this point, "There's a butler?" And he kind of like starts blinking his eyes, like as if he's interested.
Right.
Um,
It's piqued his interest.
yes. And again, Royal Flush is basically the nanny.
Yeah.
And Maxwell, though, is like, "Let's end this insipid discussion." He finally agrees. And
Right.
Fran's like, "Well, you need to give him the red carpet treatment." And she describes what would that all entail. And she offers, you know, to to do that, like to watch over him.
Right. To stay at a really nice hotel, go
Yeah.
out to nice dinners,
So,
theater tickets.
yeah. And Cece is not happy with Fran offering. And if Cece's like, "But this is a very important child." To which Maxwell says, "Unlike my own." And Niall says, "Whoopsie," behind Cece.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, Fran has said, she said she gave a name of a hotel that I guess is down the street from Elizabeth Arden. And but Maxwell says no, he'll stay with us, at the Sheffield home. Um, and Fran kind of turns to Niles like and does like puts her thumb and pointer finger close and says, "This close," to
Right.
convincing him, for something like that. But essentially what we've set up here is that again, there's going to be a young child sitcom star from a show that's essentially the nanny that's going to be coming to stay with the Sheffields.
Right.
Is there anything you want to add to that scene, Debbie?
I'll just add to the setup. He's staying with them because he's about to star in the show that Maxwell and Cece are producing.
Yes.
So
Which is Oliver.
correct. That's the only thing I wanted to add. Shall I take us to the living room?
Yes.
So we go to the living room, and it's sometime after. We're not really sure how much time after. But Fran's calling to the kids saying that Royal Flush is about to come on, so come, let's watch together. And I think Gracie says, "Well, I like Full House better." And Fran's like, "No way, Royal Flush beats Full House every time." And then
Mhm.
we kind of cut to the television where we see basically snippets of this show, and we see
Mhm.
who we learn is Jack Walker come on, and he does this whole "hey yo whoa" thing, and Fran's like, "Oh, it's a gift from God," like Streisand.
Mhm.
And of course, Maggie comments that he's obnoxious, and Brighton explains to her it's TV, it's a formula. The big sister's an airhead, the little kid's obnoxious, but he morphs into a teen heartthrob. And Fran says, "Yeah, but he has to, keep his ego in check, otherwise he'll be knocking over liquor stores." Um,
Mhm.
and Maggie says, "But what happens to the cute little one?" And the cute little one, Gracie, chimes in. She gets a breast reduction and goes to Yale.
Mhm.
And at some point, Maxwell and Niles have come in, and Maxwell's sort of watching, and he kind of comments on how the kid can't act, like,
Mhm.
and how ridiculous the show is. And we see again where it's flipping back and forth between the Sheffield living room and the TV, and we see a woman who looks very much like Fran, who kind of looks like Leslie, the
Uh-huh.
woman who Maxwell picked up at that club bar wherever they went, but Fran and Val didn't actually go in. Um, and it cuts to her big hair, bright clothes. She's holding a teacup, and she says to clearly the butler, "Don't start with me, Clive." And Fran comments, "Oh, just look at the clothes she's wearing. How could she afford to dress like that on her salary? I know I can't." And
Mhm.
Maxwell's like, "This is absurd. The father just stands there like a stunned beast, giving the servants the run of the house." And Fran's like, oh, the servants don't have the run of the house. Oh, by the way, my mother's coming by to use your jacuzzi tub. And Niles adds, tell her level 3 bubbles and pulsates. So I've heard. So, like,
Mhm.
again, as you put it, it's this parallel between them.
Mhm.
And of course, Maxwell says, turn that off. Jack Walker's going to be here any minute. The last thing he's going to want, is to hear lines from his own show. I think Fran chimes in that last part. The doorbell rings and they go to the door to greet him. And what does Fran do? She greets him with, hey, yo, whoa. And
Mhm.
needless to say, Jack Walker is less than enthused by that. And he basically starts complaining the moment he gets there about how he hates airplane food, that it's loaded with salt. Look, I'm all bloated. I look 9.
Mhm.
Frankly, I think he's supposed to be 12,
Yeah.
but whatever. Anyway, so Fran's, Maxwell introduces himself, and Jack basically was like, yeah, hey, whatever, nice to meet you. And he goes right to Fran and he looks her up and down, and who is this? And it's just like so creepy. Um,
Mhm.
but so anyway, Fran introduces herself. I'm Fran. I've seen every one of your episodes. I'm a big fan. I've seen every one of your episodes except for the one that the president interrupted, like he couldn't invade Haiti during Blossom. And she like says that she can't believe she's meeting little Kippy. I mean, Jack Walker, somebody please pinch me. And what does he do? He pinches her behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which again is not something no. Um,
Mhm.
I'll just leave it there.
Yeah.
So anyway, so then he's meeting the children, like the Sheffield children, and Brighton comments about how I really dug that episode where you lost your virginity. And Jack Walker responds, yeah, like I had to act. And
Mhm.
Maxwell chimes in, telling Brighton, because the two boys are going to be sharing a room, why don't you go put away your toys? And Brighton's like, toys, toys. Why don't you just bring out the home movies of me going pee pee in a cowboy hat and holster? Like,
Mhm.
Brighton's totally morbidly embarrassed, and he goes upstairs. And then Gracie asks, do you know the Olsen twins? And his response is, intimately. In fact, I remember when the 3 of us went to Palm Springs, the 3 of us were in a hot tub, and Fran's like, we're not finishing this story, and tells Gracie it's bedtime. So he picks that up and says to Fran, when's my bedtime? You gonna tuck me in? And she says, you must be a very good actor because on the show you're so endearing. And so then that leaves him and Maggie. And he says, I guess that leaves just you and me. And she says, not unless that head screws off and you put on Jason Priestley's. And she walks away. And like, Fran is so proud of her for like cutting him down like that. Um,
Mhm.
Maxwell, of course, takes this opportunity to go call his parents because he promised to call and let them know that he arrived safely. And he says, kind of hushed to Fran, how he leave is another matter. So Niles is about to like take his bags up, and this is where it starts. Jack gives him $100. What do I call you? And Niles says, just whistle. And
Mhm.
so Fran's like, all right, come on, I'll show you around. He's like, hey, I've been around, but I'll watch you walk. And he again pinches her. And
Yeah.
she turns around, looks at him, and he says, sorry, just a reflex. And she says, yeah, so is this, and smacks him up top the head.
Yeah.
So this really sets the stage for him being a pain in everyone's butt.
Yeah. To put it lightly.
Yeah.
I mean, and literally a pain in France because
Yes. He keeps pinching it.
yeah, even though that's just an expression.
Right. Do you want to
Yeah.
add anything or any commentary, or would you prefer to save that for later?
We'll save the commentary for later. No,
Okay.
you did a thorough job. I'll
Thank
take
you.
us to the kitchen now.
Perfect.
Cece and Niles are in the kitchen. Cece is finishing up uh, a bowl of pudding, and Niles is kind of standing there, and he has a milk, jug in his hand, and he's kind of waiting. And once Cece's finished, he asks, how's your pudding? And she says, oh, it's great. And he says, oh, expiration dates are meaningless. So then Cece, of course, has this like horrified expression on her face.
Right.
Yeah.
In, in
Um,
in his defense, some of them are meaningless. Some of them are estimations. It's sort of
mhm.
like like
Yeah,
it's sort of all over the map.
it is. it is. But you can tell he purposely waited until she was all finished before
Correct.
checking if it tasted okay.
Correct.
Um, but anyway, Fran comes in and, she's all in a tizzy because of Jack, and he's a full-fledged moron by 12. He's the eighth door of dwarf horny. And
Correct.
um, but Cece's kind of on his side, like, oh no, I love Johnny Walker. I mean Jack Daniels. I mean Jack Walker. And of course, Johnny Walker and Jack Daniels are types of alcohol.
Right. And did you catch what Niles said after that?
It's like after, and he named some other, I'm assuming alcohols.
I
It's all
believe
been a
so.
blur.
Yes.
It's so. Um, but again, she's still, not great at that, or not great at that. She's not happy with the situation. I have in my notes just the word sexist. Does that ring a bell to me? Because it's not ringing one for me.
Yeah. So Fran makes the comment, I think he is the most obnoxious, sexist brat.
Ah,
He
yes.
thinks he can look me up and down and pinch me just because he makes millions. He's got a good 10 years before he can do that.
Yeah, before he can get away with it. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. But again, Fran's also talking about how, he's not just upsetting her, but everybody. And then, of course, Brighton comes in, going, God bless Jack Walker. And of course, Cece's kind of like, huh. Um, but essentially, what's happened is like since Jack's with Brighton, Brighton feels like he has a social life because everybody's flocking to them. And in fact, as we learn, uh, well, first of all, Fran's like, whoa, Brighton, like, he, sorry. Brighton says he's found his calling, which is sucking up to famous people,
Right.
famous guys. And Fran's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. First of all, you have a trust fund that could choke a horse. So, like, don't, put yourself down. And then this is very brief, so I'll just take it. They're walking into the dining room again through a door that doesn't make sense.
It's a
But
magical house.
the dining room, and and Brighton's asking if he can go out with Jack and some girls, and Fran's like, I don't even remember going out, around that age. Oh, yes, I do. We went out for burritos. Don't do that. And I'll let you take over unless if you want to add something, feel free. But otherwise, you can take us to the living room.
Yeah, I'm happy to go to the living room. So we get to the living room. Fran and Brighton walk in, and there's Jack Walker sitting on the chair with two girls. Fran comments on one's attire, a cute bustier, and she says, "Excuse us." And she and Brighton move over to the side, and she says, "Just what did you think you were going to do with an 18-year-old girl?" And Brighton says, "Well, I was hoping to feel my way through the situation." Yeah.
Yeah.
Fran sends him to his room, and Jack tries to send Heidi, one of the two 18-year-old girls, up to Brighton's room, and Fran stops her and basically says, "If you ever want to see the Alps again, you'll leave, like leave now."
Mm-hmm.
And she gets rid of the other girl too. And so she and Jack start having a conversation, and she says to him, "Listen, Mr. Pister, when you have a house of your own, you can do whatever you want, but as long as you're under my roof." And she realizes that she's channeling her mother. "Ma, stop throwing your voice." And
Mm-hmm.
and Jack says to her, "If you don't lay off me, I'm going to call my agent and get you fired." And she's like, "Oh yeah, you think I'm afraid of a little bald man with a cigar?" And he says, "Oh yeah, my agent happens to be 34, 6 foot, with a mansion in Beverly Hills and a Porsche." And Fran's like, "Go ahead and call him. Better yet, give me his number and I'll call him. You can give me a little privacy. This is right up my alley." And he
Mm-hmm.
starts complaining about how he's not happy. And she says to him something along the lines of, you should try to be a normal kid. You should be torturing your sister and buying fake duty and things like that. Don't you have any friends? He's like, "Sure I do. My agent, my manager, my publicist." And then he takes a wad of cash and waves it, or crimples. Basically, he rubs it together and waves it in the air, and Niles appears. And he says to Niles, "Here, just for being you." Niles accepts it, of course, and says, "Love to love you, baby." And he
Mm-hmm.
disappears. And Fran's like, name me one person who doesn't make a buck off of you besides your parents. And he's like, well, actually, we're in litigation. She's like, you're suing your own parents? How can you do that? He's like, they're ripping me off. She's like, no, I mean, how can you do that? My folks, they don't have any money. But anyway, in the scene, Fran has sort of pointed out to him, like, the only people who like him are people who make money off him,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
how sort of sad and meaningless his life is.
Mhm. Yeah.
Do you want to add
And
anything?
like, so when you were talking about the money, like, yeah, so like, you know how like people make the gesture of money is by rubbing their like thumb and pointer finger together? That's kind of what he does, but with the bill in his hand, so it kind of just rubs together.
Right. It
Makes a
made it
very soft sound, but clearly
exactly
enough for Niles to hear and respond.
correct.
Yeah. But yeah, again, I'll kind of save my commentary for a bit later.
That's fair. I feel
Yeah.
like there's a lot we can talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, but so then there's a very quick scene in the hallway where again Fran's telling Niles, like she's fed up. It's either him or me. And Niles says, well, when I brought him a glass of milk, he gave me $100. For my birthday, you gave me a comb.
Right.
So again, money is speaking a lot to Niles right now. But
Yes.
then we enter the office. And in the office is Maxwell, Cece, Niles, and Fran. And um, again, basically, Maxwell's in a great mood because all of the investors have been flocking to invest in the show. And he thanks Fran for convincing him to hire Jack, to which
Hmm.
Cece flips out. Like, that was my idea. What do I need to do in this house to please, I think she says, please
What do I
someone.
have to do to please anyone around this house?
And Niles is so close, but, you know, Maxwell says, Niles. And Niles says, but sir, fish got to swim.
Exactly.
And then Cece then kind of taunts, like, ha ha, to Niles since he got stopped by Mr. Sheffield. So Niles asks if she wants lemon and squeezes some lemon into Cece's eyes.
Correct.
Her eye. So classic exchange between the two of them.
Yes, and
But
very
again,
painful for Cece's
mhm,
eye.
yeah, but this is when Maxwell's explaining the market value of Jack is like
Hmm.
making it so that all these investors are flocking in. Oh, I could just kiss you. And then he kisses her.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. So then, of course, Fran's now, oh, how long will that kid be here? A week? She's much more agreeable to having him around now.
Right.
But at this point, um, in walks Jack, uh, and gives Niles a tip. Thanks, old man. Like,
Because Niles opened the door for him.
yes, yes. And he announces that he is quitting show business because he wants to be a normal kid.
Right.
And Maxwell's like, "Oh, well, you could do that after, the 3-year run."
Right.
and and basically, um, he's like, "No, I'm gonna do this now." And he exits, and Cece does a very dramatic no and like falls over.
Yeah, she like falls to her knees, like in pain.
Yes. And how can this happen? And then the door opens again, and it hits Cece
Yep.
head because at this point she's like laying down. And um he walks in. I want to say thank you to Fran, and Fran's immediately like trying to shut him up, like, oh, it was just a sandwich.
Right.
No, no, I want to thank you. No, oh, you're embarrassing me, and like shoves him. But he prevails, and no, no, thank you for, um
If it
for your
wasn't
advice
right.
about, being a normal kid or getting out or whatever. And and then he leaves, shutting the door, and of course immediately both Cece and Maxwell um are giving death stares to
They
Fran.
sort of like gang up on her,
Yeah,
right?
and
And
he says, and Fran says, "Do you smell gas?" Like trying to make an exit.
it does
So yeah.
not work.
No, it does not. Do you want to add anything
Yeah,
before explaining how much it does not work?
yeah. I guess so. Two things. One, Jack says, "If it wasn't for your advice, I'd spend the rest of my life as an actor making other people rich." And then he
Yeah.
leaves, but he doesn't close the door. Fran then says, does anyone smell gas? And tries to walk towards the open door, but Cece closes it. And then she and Maxwell sort of gang up on her
Yeah. Yeah.
in a very like, I'm not sure, animalistic,
Menacing.
primal, menacing. Like, yeah, it's a very unpleasant, ganging up on her.
Mhm.
So, yeah, the next scene is actually still in the office. And, you know, Cece says, Nanny, fine, you're alone in a room with the kid for 2 minutes and he wants to quit show business. And Niles snarkily says, if only we could put her in a room with Tori Spelling. And
Mhm.
Cece's just working herself up. I could kill you. I could rip out your heart with my bare hands. And like
Mhm.
Fran tries to kind of get away from her a little bit and asks, she doesn't have a key to the house, does she? And like then she like totally changes tacks, like maybe it's all for the best. And Max was like, no, it is not all for the best. It is not all for the best at all. And Fran's like, you said the kid was a pain in the butt. Miss Fine, let's see if you can follow this. Sky blue, fire, hot, actor, pain in the butt. And she's like, oh, okay. And so Maxwell quickly comes up with a plan and tells her, you are going to rectify the situation. Wow, that sounds painful. Yes.
Mhm.
Thanks to you, in 8 weeks, the curtain goes up on a 6 foot, 300-pound stage manager with a mohawk singing, come city yourself, one of us. Well, all right. What do you have in mind? You're going to talk him back into the show. Oh, but Mr. Sheffield, no buts, Miss Fine. You're going to march upstairs, put on something smashing, take him out to the best restaurant in town, and order the most expensive thing on the menu. Well, all right, but I'm not taking the limo. Oh, yes, you are. Slave driver. And I think she like walks away from it and then changes her mind. Well, you're not going to buy me a new dress. And he like is going to like say yes he is, but then catches himself and like almost looks like he's gonna like tackle her over the desk.
Yes.
And
He
again,
says, "Get out."
says, so close to
Yes, yeah,
Niles.
yeah. He's like, yeah, that's when he finally realizes what she's doing and like basically lunges across the desk. Get out.
Yeah.
Close.
Would you like to take us to the very fancy restaurant?
Yes. So we are in a very fancy restaurant, and I will briefly mention, so in this uh scene, she's wearing kind of a low cut leopard print dress that's form fitting, and they're being led to their table, and they sit around, and oh, look at all these famous people. And Jack's like, oh, like Jack Nicholson, over there. And someone who looks like Jack Nicholson. I don't think it's actually Jack Nicholson, but kind of
I was
waves.
going to ask you what you thought, but
I
I don't. I
I
didn't
I
know.
would have thought that he would have been credited with an appearance if he had made a cameo, and I didn't see any credit for that. So I don't know. But then anyways, like, no, friend's like, no, over there. And oh, Whoopi. Hi, Whoopi. And again, someone who either looks like her, because again, I didn't see a credit. I don't know, it could be uncredited, like waves. And friend's like, no, over there. It's Bob Barker. Who?
Right.
Eh, And then friend's like, oh, there's a draft. Let me scooch on to the other table, or like to another table or something. And she basically just like, I guess the chairs must be very portable because
That was what I was thinking too.
like, she kind of essentially slides on to Bob Barker's table on her chair. "Oh," like,
Hi.
"Hi, do you have the exact dialogue? Because I have bits of it, but
I
not
think
all."
I have parts of it. So she says hi. She introduced herself, says she's like his biggest fan. And she says, I know I'm wearing an animal print, but it's fake. Not these. She points to her breasts because she had like gestured to her dress. Not
Mhm.
these. These are real. Only the dress. I just wanted you to know that everyone in my family has been spayed and neutered. They're pets. Did I tell you that I just love The Price is Right?
Mhm.
And
And then
and then yeah. And then
yeah,
he
and
said,
then
go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
He's, "Oh, I was just getting the bill. Let me guess, a pasta primavera, 18.95." And he goes, "Higher," and he's like and she's like, "Oh, I don't wanna go over, though." So again, essentially
Exactly.
playing a little round of Price is Right. And then the waiter comes to literally drag her back in her seat to her table. "Bye, Bob, my table's ready." And
Exactly.
so she's trying to convince Jack to stay in the business, like, "Oh, wouldn't you miss this? You know, with all these famous people. I've been schmoozing since 2. My first words were, I want to renegotiate."
Right.
And then Fran says something along the lines of hers were like,
Can I take it back if I already wore it?
yes. Um, but again, like he just wants to be a regular kid. But she's like, no, you could still be a regular kid and, act. And, you're either that or you're the person sitting at home watching TV.
Right.
Like not paying attention to school and and quickly you realize that she's talking about herself because you get fired from the bridal shop. And, you know, anyway, she then goes on to talk about, well, because I don't know, do you have what leads into the Einstein comment, Debbie?
Yeah. So he says something like that he wants out, and she says, no, because he said he listened to her, like she was
Yeah,
right. And
yeah.
she
Well,
says,
did the Einstein listen to his mother or nanny when she told him to put down the books and comb his hair?
exactly.
And again, he's like, "Well, I didn't, do the theory of relativity. I just came up with hey yo whoa." And anyway, he starts Fran just mentioned she's not a lawyer because she's asking if she can help him out with the contract. She's not a lawyer. He starts crying.
Hmm.
Um, I can't do this anymore, and like puts his head onto um, Fran's chest,
Right.
essentially. And then someone comes up with a camera to take a picture, and he looks up and smiles as if nothing's the matter. And as soon as the photographer moves away, is back to kind of sobbing in Fran's chest.
Right.
And she had kind of looked down at him after that. And I was wondering what you made of her expression at that point.
Well, you would think that she realized what he was doing, but as we see in the next scene, doesn't seem like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything you wanted to add?
So the comment about, like, he asks, is Mr. Sheffield going to hold me to my contract? And she kind of scoots her chair closer and says, well, I'm not a lawyer. Maybe you should ask the people you hired to sue your mommy and your daddy. And that's when he says that he can't do it anymore.
Yeah. And then she does, I think, say that she'll try to talk to him.
Yeah. She said, I'll look, I'll talk to Mr. Sheffield. How's that?
Hmm.
And yeah. So then I think we're in the living room,
Yep.
unless I'm mistaken. Okay, good. So we're in the living room, and Niles is bringing Maxwell an aspirin, and Maxwell says, "You hear that sucking sound?" And Niles kind of just like looks around, clearly having no idea what Maxwell's talking about. And Maxwell explains, "That's the investors pulling money out of my show." And Niles chimes in, "I too shall lament the loss of Mr. Walker. He filled the house with tips." And Maxwell looks at him, and Niles quickly adds, "Joy." Fran tells Maxwell that, you're doing the right thing. Every kid deserves the opportunity to have a normal childhood. Jack comes down. He's getting ready to leave, and Fran warns Maxwell to be nice. And Maxwell says, I am being nice. If I weren't, you'd be going with him. And Fran's like, oh, is that British humor I'm so fond of? Or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Anyway, so Jack is saying goodbye to the kids. And, obviously Brighton is upset that the celebrity he was sucking up to is leaving. But especially because as Jack is getting ready to leave, he says, Maggie, by the way, I called Jason Priestley for you, but he doesn't date women taller than him. So maybe if you unscrewed your head.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, poor Brighton doesn't want him to leave. And then in saying goodbye to Grace, he says, so long, Grace. Sorry we didn't get to know each other better. And Grace says, that's okay. Fran and I went through all your luggage. And
Mm-hmm.
Fran's like, sweetie, we were just playing Midnight Express. Maxwell says goodbye to him and wishes him best of luck. And Jack leaves. And Fran says to him, don't you feel good? And Maxwell says, I feel poor. I feel good and poor. And the TV's on. And then I think they're watching Good Day New York.
Mm-hmm.
And we hear from Liz Smith that Jack Walker has settled with the producers of Royal Flush for a staggering $85,000 per week, provided he could get out of his Broadway contract. In this reporter's opinion, you'd have to be a pretty big Broadway boob to let that happen. Meanwhile, of course, before that statement is made, Maxwell has ripped the contract and tossed it in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And Fran's like, and you said he couldn't act? And needless to
Mm-hmm.
say, he is less than thrilled.
Yeah. So earlier in the scene, whenever Fran's talking about like he deserves to be like a normal child or regular child, she immediately then turns to Brighton. Brighton, if you keep throwing darts at your Picasso, I'm gonna take it out of your room.
Right.
Doing that signature contrast in what's being said from one second to another. And I believe, is it Fran as he's leaving says have a good childhood, and then Niles has the door open, and this time he does not get a tip. He just kind of gets a kind of a low five
Yeah.
back on the hand.
Yeah. Good
But
good
yeah,
addition.
so then in uh the freeze frame though is after Fran says, and you said he couldn't act, is like Maxwell lunging towards her.
Yeah. We see a lot of that in this series.
Yeah. But the end credits, we randomly have Bob Barker in the Sheffield home, and Fran is introducing her. This is Maxwell Sheffield. This is Cece Babcock, and this is Chester, our own little Barker.
Correct.
And Cece's holding Chester, and then Bob Barker says, "Don't forget to get him neutered." And Chester like hops down and runs out the open door,
Yeah.
and that Niles is holding open. And Bob's like, "Oh, he'll come back," and Niles says, "They never do." So that's a little thing. So I have to assume that Bob Barker was doing some type of campaign regarding pets being spayed and neutered during this time, since that's a running
Yeah.
conversational piece.
He's known for animal rights work.
Mhm.
I didn't dig further into that, but I assume it has to do with, overcrowded shelters and things like that from
Mhm.
animals that are not spayed or neutered.
Yeah. So I figured before we get into the shticks, we can talk about more of the things we've put off talking about thus
Fair.
far. Because you and I are probably on the same page here
Yeah.
that not a fan of how sexualized this 12-year-old is in
Correct.
this episode. So many things wrong. Also, when he made the reference to the Olsen twins and being in a hot tub, the Olsen twins were probably around 8 or 9 at this time because they were born in 1986. And I don't know if this was aired in 94 or 95.
I think it was 94.
So they would have been 8. So don't like any connotation of him intimately knowing them. Um,
Yeah.
and having 18-year-old girls hanging around 12-year-olds.
He's 12. Yeah, and this was 1994 according to
Yeah.
IMDb. It was November.
Hmm. So, not a fan of any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I mean, we'll talk about this in one of our shticks probably, but I feel like this wouldn't have been made today.
I would hope not. Um, Again, it's just really sexualizing a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And he's just acting so inappropriately as well. Like, again, numerous times pinching Fran, not
Right.
just the one.
And that wouldn't be appropriate even if he was older.
And especially looking at the scene at the end when he's like saying he can't do it anymore and he's like cuddling up to her, like knowing he's acting, he's probably also taking advantage of like her breasts, like,
Yeah.
and yeah, overall it's very icky
Yeah.
all, all around. Um,
I agree. You
yeah.
knew I was going to agree.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. But did you have anything in addition to that?
No, I mean that's the main thing, and it's kind of hard to get around that or like past that
Mhm.
with this
Yeah,
episode. It's just
I'm a little disappointed in Niles a little bit
because of the
for,
money grubbing.
yeah, like ignoring everything else just because he's getting the tips. But
Yeah.
I'm sure you would like it too if you just got $100 bill for opening a door, but still, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk more about Niles and money in our future fun segment. So I'll save it for that.
Okay.
But yeah,
But
this
yeah,
was yeah.
and then overall, I feel like there was a lot more. Like as we were talking through the episode, this is not something I necessarily thought about as I was watching it, but talking through it, there was a lot more physically menacing, or like, because like when you were talking earlier about Cece saying, I could kill you, I could rip out your heart with my bare hands, like she's actually like has her claws out in a sense, like, and she's like making herself big and menacing as she's saying it. Um, and again, like Maxwell like lunges across the his desk and stuff. I don't know. That's just something that came to mind as we were talking.
Yeah. So I'm not going to save this for our future fun because I don't think I could pinpoint something specific, but we are going to see a lot as the series progresses of Fran has done something wrong or something bad has happened after Fran has interjected herself.
Mhm.
Um, and Maxwell chases her.
Mhm.
You know, I think there's one episode where she makes a comment about how ever since she got this job, she no longer needs her like stairmaster or needs to go running or something, like because she's getting so much exercise because she's being chased for doing something wrong.
Mhm.
Um, so that's just going to be a standby. Yeah, there is a lot more physical unpleasantness, I guess, because then that also includes the repeated pinching of Fran, which I really don't like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yep. Well, I guess for now, do we want to just hop into our shticks?
yeah, would you like to start with fashion?
Sure.
Would you like to
Uh
start?
so something I noted was just that I feel like in a lot of like a lot of the scenes, Fran's wearing some type of leopard print. Because even before the scene with the like at the restaurant with the dress, she was wearing, I believe, was it a skirt or a top?
It was both. Well, actually, it was a suit. It was a
Oh,
matching set. It was a skirt and then there was a jacket.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So that seemed to be kind of, it was just interesting because I didn't necessarily like see a narrative thing with that, but it was just something I noted.
Generally speaking, there's a lot of animal print in in this
Yeah.
series, and I will speak more specifically in our future fun.
Yeah. I was just making a reference to the episode a couple weeks ago, where like she and her mom and uh, grandmother were all wearing it, but making references to cats. So I made that connection. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Um, I don't typically wear animal print, but I do actually really like the dress she wore to the fancy dinner. I thought it was very flattering. I thought she looked fantastic in it. I probably wouldn't wear it. I would wear a dress of that cut, not with
Mm-hmm.
that pattern, but
Yeah.
I thought it was very flattering.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Agree.
on the other end of the spectrum, I really didn't like the like ugly blue suit that Jack was wearing when he arrives at the Sheffield home.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of made him look a little sleazy, I thought.
Well,
Or,
and he
I mean,
was.
yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure how much of it was the suit or him actually being sleazy. I'm not sure which direction that worked,
I mean,
but
he's such
I
a
don't
great
like it.
actor. He
Yeah,
made Flo seem sleazy.
exactly. Um, I did like Gracie's outfit when they were watching Royal Flush together. She's wearing like a white shirt with like an open pattern vest and I think a long skirt. It made
Mm.
me think of Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, which
Oh.
will come up later on in this series. So,
Mhm.
was there other fashion you wanted to comment on?
No, not really.
Okay.
There's
Um,
plenty of notable New Yorkers, though, if we want to hop into that. Or did
yeah,
you have anything to add?
I mean, I was just gonna say I didn't think there was that much great fashion in this episode. Otherwise,
Yeah, there wasn't. Yeah, there wasn't much. So the title of the episode is "When You Pish Upon a Star," which would be a
correct,
play on "When You Wish Upon a Star."
with a Yiddish twist,
Yes, and obviously Oliver is
right?
musical based off of the book. I'm assuming
Right.
Oliver, and again, Royal Flush is just made up
Yeah,
as,
I think so.
but it is kind of funny when the verbal kind of thing where Gracie says she likes Full House better, which was a real show with the Olsen twins in it, uh, and then Fran's like, oh no, but a Royal Flush beats it. So that's then I'm assuming a reference to poker.
That's what I assumed as well.
Yeah. Cats gets
Always,
brought
yep.
up again now and forever.
An
Gonna
Angela
get
Lloyd
brought
Webber
up.
masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
We will hear more of it in the future. Continue.
Yes. But yeah, so Full House. Now, okay, in the scene again when they're waiting for him to show up, I thought I caught the name Dana Plato.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I knew there was a name in there that I missed.
Okay. Let's see if a quick search will yield anything. I thought it was Dana Plato.
I thought it was David.
Oh, that would make sense. Okay, there's a Dana Plato. Was American actress and influential teen idol of the late 1970s and 1980s. She is recognized for her television work, for which she was included on VH1's list of the 100 greatest kid stars. So that's from Wikipedia. So I guess just a reference to another child star.
Yeah, I guess I think they were probably looking for something specific because the reference is about knocking over a liquor store.
Uh-huh.
But
So let me go further down.
yeah,
She
I'm
she
oh, go ahead.
struggled with substance use disorders. Her personal life was described as a tragedy. Uh, oh, she was in Different Strokes.
Oh,
Yeah. Um, well, I remember
oh,
there was some kind of teen who did something with the liquor store, but
yeah, and I think we've had this conversation previously because there is the but here's the thing, the date doesn't really make sense. So there's an article on NBC news3lv.com about child actress Dana Plato robbing a Vegas video store in 1991.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think this is what we talked about previously when we tried
mhm,
to when there was a similar reference that we had trouble finding.
yeah, yeah. So that would have been about 3, 4 years before this episode.
Right.
So still would have been relevant. Yeah. So yeah, um, I didn't know she was the actress in Different Strokes. Um, So she was mentioned, and I guess kind of like a cautionary tale reference
Exactly.
for child actors.
Yeah, because Brighton made the comment about how like the youngster, he's like obnoxious, but he'll morph into a teen heartthrob. And Fran
Hmm.
warns him, better keep his ego in check, otherwise uh
Yeah,
he'll be knocking over liquor stores.
yeah. And again, she had also Fran had referenced Streisand, Barbara
Of
Streisand.
course, of course she did.
We've talked about her numerous times.
Right.
There was the reference to Blossom, the TV show.
Yep. Which we've also
Now,
talked about previously.
and what was the invasion of what?
Yeah. So Fran made the comment like he couldn't invade Haiti during Blossom.
Haiti.
Uh, Apparently, this was a military intervention to remove the military regime in Haiti, which was authorized by the UN Security Council in July 1994. And that's Operation Uphold Democracy. That's according to Wikipedia.
Okay. Again, mentioned the Olsen twins. Jason Priestley was
Yeah.
an actor as well on, I believe, on 90210.
Correct. That's what he's most known for, according to Wikipedia.
Hmm. So, by the way, is Tori Spelling, who is referenced later, who is
Uh,
also the daughter of Aaron Spelling. Um,
yes. I'm glad you knew that because what I what I picked up was that around the time this episode had aired, she had been on Saved by the Bell and had appeared in a relatively early episode of Blossom. So
okay.
that's what I
Yeah.
dug up
He
from her
was also on
IMDb.
90210. And then Fran says, "Oh, come along, Damien. I mean, Jack." Is that a reference to the horror movie? What's it called? It's
You're
like
asking the wrong girl.
it's like it's like one of those, The Omen. The Omen. The kid in The Omen is named Damien.
Okay.
Yeah. That was my assumption. I could be totally wrong
I
because
will go with it because I know
his name
nothing.
is not his name is not Damien in the show,
Right?
you
It's
know,
Kippy.
it, yeah. So, he's basically the Antichrist, Damien in Omen. So, if our wonderful listeners think of any other reference that could be, let me know. That's my assumption.
I
Do you
will
want to
go
take
with it.
some? Yeah. Do you want to take
Sure.
some?
Um, One of the 18-year-old girls' names is Heidi, and
Hmm.
Fran comments about if you ever want to see the Alps again. So that's a reference to the 1881 children's book by Joanna uh, Spyri, I think, about a 5-year-old girl who lives with her grandfather in the Swiss Alps. Apparently, according to Wikipedia, it is one of the best-selling books ever.
Oh, wow.
Um, I didn't know that. I have a copy of it in my childhood bedroom, but I did not know it was one of the best-selling books ever.
Hmm.
Um, I don't remember where the reference came in, but I know at one point Fran makes a comment about that's like snow in Lillehammer. That is Lillehammer is a ski resort town in Norway.
Hmm.
I didn't know that until now. Um, we've You mentioned Jack Nicholson. He is
Mhm.
an American actor and filmmaker, and according to Wikipedia, he is known for having played a wide range of starring roles, including comedic characters, romantic leads, antiheroes, villains, etc. Whoopi Goldberg, American actor, author, comedian, and television personality who, not to date our podcast, but she recently got into some hot water. You mentioned Bob Barker. He is the retired game show host from The Price is Right. He, according to Wikipedia, was the longest running daytime game show host in North American history,
Mm.
which I didn't know. The Price is Right. I feel like we've spoken about before, but just in case, according to our friends at Wikipedia, is an American television game show revolving around contestants competing by identifying the accurate price of merchandise in the hopes of winning cash and prizes.
Mhm.
Liz Smith is mentioned. She
Mhm.
is the Great Dame of Dish. She wrote for Cosmo, the Washington Post, New York Daily News, and others. Yeah, I believe we'll
Mhm.
see her again. You mentioned Jason Priestley, Albert Einstein,
Mm-hmm.
everyone knows him. Picasso, we've talked about before. And then the last one is, I think, Pizza Hut.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
And I also had Ed McMahon.
I don't remember the reference, but I believe you.
Yeah, it's after Einstein told, did Einstein listen to you? Like, hey, whoa. And then there was some reference to Ed McMahon. I don't have the full context.
No, that's great. Fran also references him being the eighth dwarf, which obviously references Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I'm officially out.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, would we like to go to Yiddish Cop?
Sure, unless you have any other notable New Yorkers, because I totally cut you off.
I don't believe so.
Okay, cool. So, gonna start with simple, the one that you all know is coming. Pepperoni is not kosher. Because in the first scene, Fran walks in with like a pizza pocket, and that's when she says that she's never going to order from Pizza Hut again because the pepperoni, whatever. Pepperoni is not kosher. Even if it was, wouldn't be putting it on anything with pizza because you don't mix meat and cheese under kosher. Point one. Point two, the word schmooze, as in the first sentence uttered by Jack Walker. It's like talking in a sort of a friendly way. According to NPR actually did a whole story about the etymology of schmoozing. So it derives, schmooze itself is not Yiddish, but it derives from the Yiddish word schmoozen, which itself then derives from the Hebrew word shmooey, which means rumor.
Wait, so shmooey means rumor?
Yeah, in Hebrew.
Interesting. And Brighton's other name is Shmooey?
Correct. I don't know if the spelling would be the same. I also don't know. I did not look at the exact Hebrew spelling. I looked at the transliteration, but the only way I could figure out how to pronounce it would be shmooey.
Okay.
So, wonderful listeners, if I'm totally mispronouncing Hebrew or Yiddish, please let us know, and I will issue a public apology. Thank you. The last Yiddish reference is in the title of this episode. When you pish upon a star, as Bernadette pointed out, this was when you wish upon a star, but pish, to me, makes me think of pisher, which I've only ever really heard this word in like a family story about, World War One, and how like some of my family was here, some of my family was back in Europe, and people in Europe, it was the mom left with two little pishers, and so I've always thought of it as sort of a like an endearing term, but apparently that is not accurate. According to collinsdictionary.com, the two definitions of pisher are a young, inexperienced, presumptuous person, or a person or thing of no importance, a nobody or nothing, which makes way more sense than in the title of this episode than my family history. So
interesting.
I thought so. So yeah. 90s nostalgia.
I'll let you go first.
The very old phone that Cece's holding and tries to make the call to get Jack Walker for their show.
Well, and kind of going off what you said earlier in terms of the plot, like whether you think they would make something similar today.
No. I would hope not, as you put it.
I would hope not.
Like, I could see...
Please don't sexualize 12-year-olds.
Right. I could see them doing something like this with an older child star, I think.
Yeah.
But
didn't he have like some type of like old cell phone as well?
Jack. He might have.
I thought like
he might. I mean, he threatens
to call the
agent.
Like when he was threatening to call the 34-year-old 6'2" guy with the mansion in Beverly Hills in a Porsche. I
Yeah,
thought, he may have had like an old-fashioned cell phone.
he might have. Um, I I assume there were old cars, but I did not affirmatively note it on this episode. So
Yeah.
please correct me, guys, if I'm wrong.
Um, Now, the other thing too is that Maxwell's like, oh, I'm going to go call your parents to make sure they know that you arrived safely. Again, today he probably would have had a cell phone like Jack that he could have just texted. Or if he wasn't going to do it, then Maxwell could have
Right.
texted.
That would have been a text message today.
Yes, like made it. I'm
He's
safe.
he's alive for now.
Or they could track his progress online with the flight.
Or that.
My dad likes to keep an eye on the flights.
Yeah, but I'm
online.
sure your dad also wants a text message or a phone call from you when you
Yes.
land to make
That's
sure
true.
you're okay.
Yes.
My mom's the same way. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other than that, did you have anything really that stuck out to you as 90s?
well, I think that blue suit that
Mm-hmm.
he's wearing was kind of dated. Also, the outfit he was wearing when he left is like a jean jacket. It also to me looked dated.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, that's it. That's all I have.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we can finally do the next temporary. How do we refer to this particular shtick? Because it's not every week.
It is not every week. I was just going to say, we're super excited to announce that this week the kiss count is up to 3.
Yep.
Woohoo!
Woo!
I don't. We can figure out how excited we need to be as this progresses. But yeah, so we're up to number 3. Fran and Maxwell had kissed 3 times.
Yep. And yeah, apparently Maxwell just gave into the urge after saying, I could just kiss you. And then he did.
Exactly. I think that's exactly how I had it in my notes
And
too.
Fran was not mad about it.
No, she was very pleased.
Mm-hmm.
She was very,
Okay,
very
so
pleased.
future fun.
Okay, so I've hinted a number of times of talking about Niles being cheap. That is going to be a continuing theme. There's one episode where Niles is snooping around Fran's room for really, there's no other way to describe it. And he sees that she has a credit card application, and she lied on it, needless to say, to exaggerate her income. And he gets really upset and demands more money from Maxwell. And he actually does demand it. And Maxwell's like, you realize I'm here. And anyway, Niles ends up quitting and takes a much higher paying job working actually for Aunt Frida, as a houseboy, I believe. So that's he ends up coming back to work for the Sheffields after that. But he's very focused on money. There's another episode where the family isn't planning to do a big family holiday trip, and so Niles is told he can do what he wants. Like, we're not going anywhere. And Cece comments about how Niles is too cheap to get himself a nice vacation. He lives in your house, he eats your food, he wears your old clothes, like all these different things. So Niles being cheap is going to be something that continues throughout the series. So sorry to disappoint on that front. Let's see what else. Kind of to your point about how there was a lot of physical menacing. Not only will there be multiple instances of Fran being chased by Maxwell because something went awry. The last episode in this season, actually, Cece threatens to smother Fran with a pillow and actually takes a pillow and presses it to Fran's face.
Ooh.
Yeah. And now it's like, aren't you going to stop her, sir? And Maxwell just kind of lets it continue for a bit. So that's not so great.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've mentioned that Fran is going to sit on the edge of Maxwell's desk often. There is a replacement nanny hired in the Sheffield home in season 6, who, when she's not really sure what to do, Maxwell tries to describe what the last nanny did and mentions that she sat on the edge of my desk in very I think, alluring manner is the way he phrases it. And so the replacement nanny tries to do that, and it doesn't have the same results. Um, let's see. That animal print dress, the leopard or whatever, the animal print dress that Fran is wearing, I think makes an appearance in an episode in season 3 during Fran's imagined appearance on David Letterman's show. And then I think, just checking my notes, the last one I have is that Whoopi Goldberg is actually a guest star on 2 episodes, one in season 5 and one in season 6. In season 5, she appears as Grandma Yetta's boyfriend or fiance. I can't remember what their relationship is at that point. Anyway, Yetta's gentleman caller's niece.
Oh, okay.
So that's one that's in season 5, and then in season 6, she actually guest stars as herself.
Cool.
So, yeah, we have a lot of future fun to look forward to.
So, episode ratings.
Oy.
As our listeners know, we rate them from 1 to 5 lipsticks, and it's your turn to go first.
Oy. Okay, so this episode is problematic for all the reasons that Bernadette and I have already discussed. This is not an episode I go out of my way to watch. It's not one that I particularly enjoy. I'm not really a fan of it. Considering the other episodes that we've talked about this season that we've rated so highly, that are episodes I actively go out of my way to rewatch, I'm gonna give this one a 2 because I'm not a fan. Okay, your turn.
That's exactly what I was thinking. A 2. For everything that you said, part of the reason it's not lower is because there is a kiss.
True.
But again, didn't have a great time watching it. I was just very much annoyed by the character and also just the overall sexualizing of the 12-year-old. Not great. And then, of course, like him being such a terrible character and getting away with pulling something over them doesn't leave you feeling great at the end of it.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's not like there's any type of like redemption or that like somehow Fran and the Sheffields pull one over on a terrible character. It's nope, the terrible character gets away with it. So I agree. A 2.
Yeah. I'm realizing, can I add a little bit more to future fun, or have we closed that? Okay. I just wanted to mention
the rules, Debbie.
Okay. Guys, if anyone doesn't want any more future fun, just skip to the end of the episode. Okay, thanks. There's that reference at the end when Jack Walker is leaving where Gracie says, "Oh, Fran and I went through all your stuff." That is a behavior that they repeat in other episodes. So in a few weeks, we're going to do the episode I've Got a Secret, where there's a guest at the Sheffield home whose identity is not shared with Fran. So Fran rifles through their stuff to try to figure out who it is. Also later in this I think it's later in this episode, later in this season, in the episode Lamb Chops on the Menu, Fran and Val go through Sherry Lewis's stuff. And every time Fran's doing these things, some sort of mishigas ensues. Some sort of nonsense trouble follows. So
of course.
I just wanted to mention that.
Okay.
Okay. That's all I have. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, I don't believe so.
All right. Well, that's all we have for you today. We hope you had a fine time with us as we revisited The Nanny. Join us next week when we'll be discussing episode 34, Take Back Your Mink.
If you would like to reach us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Nanny Revisited. You can also send us email at afinetimenannyrevisited@gmail.com. Have a great week.